Oh, why is it so black? No gang signs, man. East side. And I'm just, you can do whatever you want. You can go up to gang signs if that makes you happy. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody do anything fun over the weekend? Anybody go to the magic show? I went to it. Pretty cool. Well, I guess illusionist. It was really good. I don't know how he did what he did. He's actually about to do it. He just got picked on to do a weekly magic show on NBC. So, yeah. Yes. No.
I mean, if he could perform it, you know.
Yeah, I don't know why he was here. Cause like, he's like been on 2 TV shows and like he won like a magic TV show competition and he was on like America's Got Talent, like was like top 12 like the last show. And I don't know why he was here. Like this did not seem right, but I was okay with him.
Did he do his spirit act?
The voodoo one or the
Well, he calls upon a spirit like Desmond.
Oh, Desmond? Yeah, no, he did that. Yeah, and like the chalkboard thing.
He does a lot of things.
Yeah, no, Desmond came and wrote on the chalkboard, and like somebody was thinking of a name, and the name appeared on the chalkboard, as well as a calculation appeared on it that somebody was like adding a bunch of random numbers together. Don't know how he did it. It's either it's all planted, which I just don't know. Because he just like picked people. Maybe it's all planted. I don't know. I figured out how he did one of them. The only way that he could have done it is if he had this little tiny printer like this big. Because he printed a lottery ticket. It was in a freaking box. And he got 6 people from the audience to randomly pick numbers. And then he picked the numbers and then he opened the box. And the lottery ticket had those numbers on it. I don't know how he did it. And it bothers me to this day. But we should.
Have you seen that movie with Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman? What's that called?
Yeah.
What's it called? Prestige?
Yeah, where he kills himself. Oh, sorry. Don't want to get into this point.
Actually, that still won't like spoil it.
Yeah.
Probably still wouldn't have any clue what's going on. Who hasn't seen that movie? Oh man, it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's Christopher Nolan, that's his name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. He always likes to twist things around.
It's good. Encourage you to watch it, at some point.
I'm gonna go talk to this.
I'm a big movie watcher. Actually, I have this, it's either this exact same projector in my apartment or it's one very similar. It's the similar Epson because I like to watch movies. Oh, this thing's movable. Look at that. Oh, that makes me so happy. I didn't know that. I think it's less like invasive on the top. But now, is there something that I can't get to tabs? So now I'll be able to get to tabs. Because like the top is like the least important part of the slides. At least in my opinion. Okay, so any successes that happened this week? Anything that was really good that happened? Any projects that are just like going so well that you just can't believe it?
Marcus, didn't you reach like 400 people for your survey or something ridiculous?
You just found for it.
Yeah, we haven't.
Doing it.
Yeah. And so for our project, basically, the client wants us to do market research. In order for him to take that and hopefully go to a VC and get funding for this big project that might be like multi-million dollars. And it's a lot of kind of making up the survey that they want to get the answers. Like, I don't know, it's pretty specific. And so we figured there's 11 categories. He wants at least 10 companies per category. And we were up to like 270 names or 270 companies. How to send them out? We trial run a couple of surveys and whatnot. And then our project manager told us to shoot a little bit higher for 400. And so we went from like 270 to 400 in like a day and a half or 2 days.
Wow.
Could you repeat how much time that took? Like 2 days.
2 days. Doubled in two, well, almost doubled. That's awesome. Cool.
We found some things that have helped us out a lot.
Yeah. Are they project-specific things, or are they things that you think are applicable to other projects as well?
Well, one of the problems we ran into was getting like cheesy emails like info@suchandsuch.com, which we didn't want to send our surveys because we knew it was going to go straight to the junk pile or the secretary. And so Brennan actually, he found this Google Chrome extension called Hunter.io. I highly recommend it. You can go in and put the web address, and it'll pop out all the emails related to that web address found on the internet. And some are verified, or it has like a confidence level of like 90%. And you can kind of cross-reference that with LinkedIn or whatever to see who's still there and who's not.
Ah, interesting.
And so we've been able to find a lot more quality emails through that. So you can sign up, it's free, you get 100 per Gmail. So if you have two, you can get 200 or ask your wife or her.
Yeah.
Find a roommate.
That is actually very, very cool. So if that's applicable to your guys' projects, then that might be helpful. Cool.
Come see Marshall, you know all about it.
So just update about schedule and calendar for the broad overview. So this is week 5. So kind of, you're on track if you're about 50% done with the research by the end of this week. That's kind of a good kind of benchmark. So not necessarily like by today, but like by the end of this week, you're about at the 50% mark. And some of you kind of started it a little bit later, so you might be a little bit different, but that's just in general. So for next week, took some kind of doing another day-to-day. So encourage you to schedule that. There's also going to be something that's going to be due, which is your first like do thing, which is a scope and methodology slide for your presentation. So that will be due next week, the middle of the week, just to your project manager, and they'll be able to provide lots of feedback for it. This is to start building your final presentation. So we start now and slowly piecing things together to make it easier, so it's not all done in the last week. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a second here for some examples of like what's a scope and methodology slide. It's like 2 to 4 slides, so like not that big of a deal.
Also make sure to keep all of your data in the Google Drive folders. I guess that it just makes everything really easy when you're wrapping things up, and it's really hard to contact the research specialist that maybe is in a different state that has something on a Google Drive folder, and you're trying to compile everything together right away. So just make sure that you have everything in the Google Drive folder. If we don't see things there, the project managers are going to assume that nothing's been done. So really try and keep your data there.
So what projects are feeling a little bit behind schedule? Yeah, just, it's okay. Don't feel embarrassed. If you are, I would highly encourage you guys to just really create an action plan, set dates, set people to do it, to try to help you stay back on track. Like, how do we get back on track? If you want to get back on schedule, what do we have to do now in order to achieve that? So the boardroom, this is the boardroom, this is the conference room. We've been having some conflicts with that. So what we've done is we created a new calendar for the boardroom. And all of the junior analysts will get invited to that calendar. And if you want to have your client consultation there, you will need to schedule on that calendar, just so our ag division is aware of what events we have occurring there. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. We're going to see how it works. So if you are a junior analyst, you should be receiving an invite to that. Yeah.
Is that in addition to the, so you have to invite, so you schedule it on that calendar and on the internship?
How it's currently set up, yes.
Okay.
I've been trying to get them to create an email so you could just add, you could just invite the boardroom at RBD Center, or you can add it as a resource, but we don't have to set up yet. So currently you have to set up 2 events on 2 schedules, so we still know that it's happening in the ag division.
I thought they didn't have that set up.
I don't think that they do. Last I checked.
I think they do actually. So last time, I'm pretty sure you just add them as an email. We'll clarify that with you guys though. We'll send out like a message to all the JAs with the exact directions.
Because what they currently have is just a calendar. And they don't have anything set up as a resource calendar, so you can't add it as a resource. You can actually manage rooms. But we will confirm that. So yeah, data and methodology slides. Now we're going to go to a quick scope and methodology slides. So kind of what we're expecting. And you can currently use the templates that are in the Google Drive. Those won't be the final ones. I'm going to be updating those. I just haven't had time to do that yet. This is not high on my priority list. But what we're really looking for is content right now. So the scope is just one slide, very simple. It just clearly defines the task and objectives of the project. Methodology is usually 1 to 3 slides, depending on how complicated your project is. And it just shows the amount of work that was done. It also explains how the data was collected. And this is so that it could be repeated, or they understand the logic behind it, or what steps were taken to kind of get this research completed. Sometimes that's survey, there might be other things. So these are some just examples. So this is for a project that was ready. It was done a couple semesters ago. This is actually inside the Intern Resource folder as an example of project, final deliverable. So this is the scope that they had on their project. It's very simple. There's a couple bullets talking about just kind of what the project was and looking at determining the work and lifestyle preferences of millennials in Eastern Idaho. Just kind of as a reminder. And then they had just one slide for the survey methodology, and it just kind of, for them, there was a survey that they did. So they just outlined the respondents, how many were actually analyzed, because often you will not analyze all the respondents to your survey. You'll filter people out, you know. They probably had respondents who didn't live in Eastern Idaho and filtered them out. Somehow they took the survey. And then they kind of explained how the surveys were administered to college and to the online sample of individuals. So this is a kind of a 1-slide example of how to do that. Did I include another example? I didn't include another example in here, but there's other examples inside the Intern Resource folder. There's like 6 or 7 projects there. You can go there and just look at the first couple slides. So if you are doing competitive analysis and maybe you're focusing on 2 parts, demand and financial feasibility, you know, like return on investment, you might have 2 methodology slides, one about how you did that, you know, how you did the demand, and another methodology slide about how you looked at the, you know, the return on investment and, you know, competitors you might have looked at. So that's kind of an example of how you might do that. Does that make sense? So it's not super difficult. Just try to get something to your project manager by mid next week so they can give you some feedback, and we can start building this final presentation. So today we're talking about data visualization, and we're going to be using a real-world example. This is an example of a coworker of Will's that was actually created and distributed to the masses in Idaho. I might make fun of Idaho a little bit today. I'm sorry for those who live in Idaho. Yeah. So this was created by the Department of Labor, and this is a great example of bad data visualization as well as just general PowerPoint stuff. So, so the first slide, you know, it's okay. Okay, so this is the second slide. So what is so bad about this slide? So it's like raise your hand when you see something. There's like 10 plus items. Yeah.
Color scheme is terrible.
Okay, so color, not so good.
Spacing's off.
Spacing's off. Okay. What else?
Sizing for the titles is off.
Sizing for the titles. Okay. It's like a little small. Is that what you're talking about? Like these are. It's a lot of words. Okay. Yeah.
That's ludicrously inconsistent. So you've got a whole bunch of stuff from 2012, 2 months in 2012 which are contiguous, but you also have stuff from 2011, and your unemployment rate can change quite a lot in a year. Also, it says under the year ago it says national unemployment rate, but it already says that over on the other side, so it really needs.
Kind of redundant. It's like if you forgot by the time you got to the third column, you remember.
But it doesn't do that anywhere else.
Yeah,
It intersects and it interrupts the information. You have to suddenly read the whole term to allow what it means.
Fantastic. And anything else? Yeah.
Could you put it in graph form?
You maybe could put this in a graph form. Yeah, and that's something that kind of we'll talk about. Is like there's like a lot of ways to display data and kind of like create a couple, test them out, see which looks best. Anything else? There's still some more things. Yeah.
There's nothing that's directing your attention to anything specific. Like I think like if you're going to compare national versus Idaho, there's nothing that really shows that visually. The text box is too bland in general.
Okay. Yeah.
Idaho unemployment rate columns to grow both numbers of 2012.
Yeah. Little typo there. Which they probably meant to say 2011 here, but I kind of like. Do I really believe this data now if you can't even like type a number incorrect? Like, wait, is this supposed to be 9.8? Like, typed one number in wrong. Okay, what else? Okay, so today. What day is it today? Tuesday, May 22nd. Do you think that that's what they mean? I don't think so. So that's kind of not great because it means it was great when he made it and it was fine when he made it, but as soon as that next month occurred, it's now wrong. It's not today. Anything else you guys see? A couple more inconsistencies here. We have August, September. So you're not comparing apples to apples. You're comparing August to September by saying it's the same, but it's not. It's 2 different months. Kind of ugly. As well as this is kind of ugly right here. How might you fix that? All these counties, like it's inconsistent. Yeah.
You could just put like a little star and then underneath the table, just
Yeah.
have like a little italics list that just has those counties.
An asterisk?
Asterisks, yeah.
Asterisks. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. So yeah, there's lots just wrong with this. And we're gonna look at them fixed, but we're gonna continue. So get excited. So now what's so wrong about this?
I like that green cut through.
Yeah, the green cut through. Guys, this is real. This is, yeah, so green cut through title. Okay, anything else?
There's a lot of white space.
Okay, so lots of white space. You got all this right here.
The x-axis is super confusing.
X-axis, super weird. Like, what are they thinking? So, like, this is count with year. Well, counts here and counts here, so I'm getting kind of redundancy. Like, does it really matter if it was like 6,500 or 6,600? Like,
4 uses of space.
yeah, it's 4 use of space. Yeah.
I feel like the bar graph was a really poor choice. This would be a lot better if it was like in a time series.
Okay.
That way you don't need to put the number or the what's on the y-axis with the x-axis because you kind of intuitively see it that way. It just looks better when it's.
Yeah. So maybe time series is a better way to display that data. I think that's totally valid. I'll create both and see which looks better. In Excel, you can do like 10 seconds. So yeah.
Your titles repeated twice. So you notice there's the big
3 times.
nasty one. Oh, yes. So there's the big nasty one up top. Then there's the smaller one that's like almost the same thing, but clarifies this that it is Southeast Idaho, and so it's covering more than just Pocatello. And then It also says it on the other side, and it's in some places it says 2007 till present, and in others it says 2007 till 2012.
Yes, there's not a redundancy, but there's inaccuracies, there's variations.
Also, it says, so the 2012 data is from quarters 1 and 2, but the rest of them are quarters 1 through 4, I would assume. So including 2012, unless you use some sort of prediction for the future, is completely useless because it doesn't compare with the rest of them.
Yeah, so it looks like we're entering a recession in 2012. Looks like it's an awful year for what's this, jobs, for labor creation. Looks like it's an awful year, but it's actually a great year. Simply just like double it, highlight the top like a light pink and say like that's estimated, or just don't include it at all because it looks really bad. So you're not comparing apples to apples. This is a full year against half a year. Yeah.
The color also kind of implies what you were just mentioning as well, the fact that it's red, but,
Yeah.
but they're actual job openings. So like a lower value, but with the red color implies a really negative.
Yeah. So yeah, this is just great. I think that's all the key things. Okay, so what's up here? What's wrong with this?
This is real. Like,
This is real. This was real. And
Does it
this
make you
could
feel confident, like, about your future projects?
be- Yeah. Yes. If you want, Will has lots of stories about stuff after this point. You can share it at some point. Yeah.
Well, the picture covers some words.
Picture freaking cover words. Like, that's like an elementary school thing that you learn, like, not to do. Okay, fantastic. Now, does that picture add any value? No, it's like, he just Googled, like, professional interview, I'm assuming, and, like, stuck it on there. Okay, what else? Yeah,
like usually if you do like, you'd have like that title that says if you're according to the US Department of Labor, the 1 through 8 would be like tabbed in, but it like goes to the left. It's like, I don't know, it's just not the usual format you'd follow when doing something like that.
yeah,
It's super weird.
okay. And what else?
Just random bolding in there.
Random bolding, yeah, well, it's like, and wait, there's more. It's like, what, are you like an infomercial? Like, this sounds like this trying to spam me. And 2 more, like, just say, like, there's 8.
In case you stopped at 6 and didn't think it was done.
Wait,
Like,
there's
you
more.
thought it was done.
An economist created it, so, you know, it's kind of, you probably thought this was, like, making it more exciting. Yeah.
Why is the hashtag symbol after the number?
I know, right? Well, is a number not enough to know it's a number, but I need to define its number by the hashtag symbol. Uh-huh. So what else is a little bit, like, maybe odd about those numbers? Are they rankings? Is he just numbering them because he wants to show that there's 8 in case you can't count? Or is number 1 the most important? Or are they, you know, what? So if there's ever a ranking, it needs to be defined as like ranked from most to least important. Or if it's not a ranking and they're just randomly there, just bullets, or just say alphabetically sorted, or something. Because if a client is seeing this, they're gonna think, oh, communication, that's number 1. And then enthusiasm, that's number 2. When really, networking might have been the most important. Okay. You guys ready for this? The next slide basically saying it gets worse. So, if the number and hashtag was not enough for the pound, we now have number, pound, and colon. Just so you are well aware that this is like, I don't even know. Same thing. Yeah. You got the same thing. Are those like, it says top 10 Idaho hot jobs. Are these ranked? It's not really specific. Don't know. Are these by number of openings? Are these by number of new hires? Are these by, I said, yeah.
Registered nurses is misspelled.
Spell check. It will do it by itself. Like, it will just underline in red. They just ignored it.
That's their job, is to register the nurse though.
Registered nurses.
Lots of people registering nurses.
Yeah, nobody actually being a nurse, just the register. Yeah.
Doesn't really make sense.
Title does make sense, yeah.
Day range, and say it's a projection, but it isn't the current year 2012.
Yeah. So that's a little bit confusing. You got the whole like, oh, you know, that green bar, I bet you that green bar was there and was designed by the graphic designers at Idaho Department of Labor to contain the title. And the title should probably be constrained to the title box. Don't know why you felt like you needed to go outside that title box. Well, the title is ginormous, like it doesn't need to be that big. Okay. Yeah.
One other thing is that title sounds like clickbait, like you wouldn't see in the sidebar if you're going through.
Idaho's hot jobs.
Yeah.
Click here to learn more.
So,
Yeah.
we're trusting first now.
Okay. I think this is the last slide. Oh, it's real. Okay. So what's wrong with this one? Yes, the text does go out. Okay. Yeah, they do have the source, yeah. Which is nice to include on your graphs.
It's embedded in the text. So if you read, you can know what the source is.
All right, so what's bad about this? Just everything. Okay.
Too many words.
Too many words. And are the words redundant or are they useful?
I didn't want to read it.
Yeah. If you guys want me to, they're exactly what the graph shows. They're just talking about the numbers which are in the graph. So pick one or the other. Either list the numbers or graph. You generally graph would be preferred, much better. So what else? And maybe some things about the graph. What's kind of odd about that? Well, not odd, but not best practice. We're trying to go like best practices.
Y-axis.
The y-axis, yeah. We got to the 100th place. This is accurate. Like, we just don't care. Like, it's just to the whole numbers completely fine. You don't need to the 100th place or the 10th for that
I
matter.
would think in this case, to be honest, since there is minimal information, it would be better to just display the percentages rather than a graph. Because humans don't do very well with area.
Yeah.
So it would be more informational to give them the percentages and just.
Yeah, because there's only 3 bars, so it's like a really graph best way with a table just listing out the 3 places and then a number. That might be much better. Yeah. There's a visual benefit by the table by the graph. Yeah.
Look at the scale on the graph. So it goes from 21 to 29. That's extremely misleading. In fact, I have a book that says How to Lie with Statistics, and that's one of the principal methods is the adjustment, because if you were trying to show some variation over time, it might work. But here, it makes it seem like there's a radical difference between the Idaho and the U.S., or eastern Idaho and Idaho.
Yeah.
When, depending on the sample size, this could completely be there's no difference between, there's no statistical difference between them.
Yeah.
Probably is, I'm just guessing because it's pulled from the Census Bureau, but without enough more additional information, like that's not a significant difference at all. Just over 24 and just under 24. Like that's the same thing.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, so it's really not a big difference. Like, if you want to cut off some of the top, that's fine. Don't cut off the bottom, generally with scales. So that's, okay, oh, we're not going to look at who did it. Does he still work there?
Nope.
No, he doesn't. Yeah, maybe I left.
He nearly lost his job. So, like, after a while, I had to prove everything that he was doing before he could do that in public. And that one, he sent it to me. This was presented to a Rotary Club that had about 120 visitors or something. And he sent it to me, and I completely redid it, sent it back, and said, you've got to make these changes. He didn't make a single change. And was like, no, I think this is the way it should be. I'm like, great, we can fire you sooner. That's what you're going to be doing. So it was really bad. I mean, that was horrific. I mean, there were I don't think I could make a PowerPoint that bad on purpose. I don't think anybody could.
Yeah.
It's that bad.
And
if you think about it too, the client, like we said at the beginning of the year, that there are clients that are paying for this, so every single slide should add value. Everything is worth something in monetary value to them. So,
and the other part of it is you start presenting, and it's psychologically, if they can't believe you off the first slide, if there's like lots of questions, they're confused, they'll drag that confusion and it'll just accumulate and snowball throughout the whole presentation. And that's certainly like after about 2 slides on this one, I would be in the audience surfing Facebook pretty quick. Because I just would be like, wow, it's hurting my head to try to figure out what you're trying to present. And you lose a lot of confidence in that. And I think, yeah, it's probably 80% of the value of your work will come from that 45 minutes that you're presenting a PowerPoint to the client at the end of this project. Literally about 85% of it. So you'll give them a written document to go with it. And they'll look at that, but they'll remember the presentation a lot more. And the things that stick out in it hopefully aren't things like what was sticking out in this one, but instead like really good, valuable data that's easy to understand.
Yeah. Most likely we are going to very kindly, hopefully tear apart your PowerPoint, and there's like 3, 4, 5 edits of it, because we'll want it to be just like super good, bulletproof, because a small mistake like that can just like, a simple typo can totally like hurt the credibility of it. So I agree. A lot of it's your client's going to leave that final consultation with like a decision in mind. They're going to be like, okay, I can do this. This is going to be a good business decision. We're going to go open up this new store. Or they're going to leave it being like, I don't think we should do it. We got to look at this further. So that meeting is really important. And if there's typos, if there's weird graphs, then they're going to.
yeah, there's little things that you won't be able to catch on your own too. So you just have to review it with your group as well. Review it with like 4 or 5 different people, because everybody catches something different. So just keep that in mind. Like you might think like, oh, I could never make a mistake like that, and then we're reviewing it, and then we see, you know, a list of things that could be improved. But that's just part of the process. Just make sure you get with your group and then to take your class as well.
Okay.
That's something.
Okay. Great. Okay. So now let's talk some more about some. So this is basically the chart, the table, the before table. Now let's look at the after table. Look at that. It's so pretty. So we've done the asterisks, taken it out. So if you don't know what counties are in southeast Idaho, you now know. It now has a date, looking at comparables, as well as the old one. Look at today, then last year. Now we're looking at last year, not today. So we can look at the progression, you know, from, in a time scale from least recent to most recent. Left to right.
And now that table can live on for years and still be accurate, which is important, because if it's not, like, your clients will reference your work for months and years after you're done in some cases. And if it's not written up like this, you're not using obscure dates. You're using weird dates, and it makes it hard for them to reference things back. Normally, we wouldn't have black on black text.
Oh yeah, no, that was me. I just copy pasted this, so ignore that. Yeah, this probably doesn't follow all the rules or the best practices because we have so much content we're trying to get on. So, and that was just my bad. I should have highlighted it white.
That's why we review with groups.
What should you do?
The August unemployment rate shouldn't be black. It should be white. I just copy pasted it from our old PowerPoint to our new template, so that's why it looks a little bit funky. Okay, so this graph is something great that Excel would auto-generate for you, and sometimes people want to leave it like this, Please do not. So what's some things that are wrong with this graph?
Some of the numbers overlap.
So numbers overlap, okay. Some redundancy as well, because you have like y-axis and the numbers, and maybe it's helpful, maybe keep it, you have to see.
Your x-axis needs to be below the table, not in the middle of the.
Yeah, so we have negatives here, which makes no sense, because you're not going to pay, you're never going to pay to work. So this is looking at entry-level police income compared to median household value, so that's kind of odd. Okay, so anything else you guys see? Yeah.
So the labels for the cities, some of them kind of bleed into each other. So maybe you can go in and get those to, you can go tilt those. That
Tilt
would
them?
help clarify which ones belong where.
Yeah, and you could do them bigger as well if you tilted them.
So you've got, yeah, you've also got like Green River South, Sioux City, those, so Sioux City we can take them together, but Green River South, that might be one, like they kind of blend.
Yeah, these right here, they kind of just like, it like is one line.
Yeah.
It looks like almost. There's also a lot of white space in the
You don't
top.
need to go up to 150,000.
Yeah,
Your biggest is 100,000 and a little bit, so 110,000,
mm-hmm.
105,000 or something like that. It's about the highest you can go.
Yeah. And this is something I didn't bring up before, which you won't see it in any of these examples. But generally, if you're going to be putting like one graph on a slide, just one graph, sometimes maybe two graphs, but really just one graph, generally speaking. And usually you won't put in the graph title here. You'll just make the slide that title. So it's a lot bigger, bolder, and it will just, this one say Will's pet peeves, this will say entry-level police pay compared to median household income in that slide title. And it'll give you more space to stretch these out. Do you have anything else you want to talk about this before we show the corrected version?
No, you'll see the correct version.
So corrected version, we've now adjusted the y-axis. We've taken the legend, put it out actually up into the middle of the graph to make it bigger. So now it's, it's easier to read. It's tiny there, bigger here. Space things out a little bit more. We've taken off the numbers, and there's no overlapping numbers. Because if you really care, because all you probably care about is kind of relationships here, looking at relationships.
If they want to look in the numbers, they'll be able to go into, this is linked to Excel, hopefully in your PowerPoint, that's what you'll do. And so they'll just be able to click on one of the bars and be able to see the numbers.
Yeah, graphs should never be pictures or images.
Yeah, never. Just want to emphasize that right now, it'll save you a lot of time if you just never copy and paste a graph. Okay. I learned that the hard way my first time, so.
Yeah, because when you mess them up, then you have to like go back and do it all. But if you go and create the graph just in PowerPoint, just insert graph and copy paste the data from Excel, then boom, generated. And if you want to reformat, it's a couple buttons you need to go back and reformat it, take a screenshot, paste it in. Plus it looks less pixelated. Yeah.
Well, you can just make the whole thing in Excel and then click and drag it on a Mac, or you can just copy it exactly from Excel. You can just click copy in Excel and then just paste it right into PowerPoint. So you don't have to make it in PowerPoint.
Yeah, if you have the newest version of PowerPoint, it does that. If you have anything below, yeah, I think you do like the not the newest one, but the one before that, it doesn't have those features. So if you're like on like 13, is that what it was, or 11? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and then that also will embed all the data in it, so that if the person is doing a PowerPoint, it's all there.
We had a good example last semester project for Bonneville County. There was a quick fix in the middle of the PowerPoint presentation where there was some data for Bonneville County that needed to be included in the graph, but it wasn't because the guy at Bonneville County had to give it to us. But he was in the presentation, and the county commissioners were sitting there and we're talking about the data, and I'm like, where's Bonneville County? We're like, well, we asked him for the data, and he hasn't given it. So he's like, well, I've got it, let me give it to you. And so they were quickly able to add it to the PowerPoint. And like in 35 seconds, it was in there, and they were happy, right? So if they had pasted it in as an image, which I've seen that happen, I've had reports. I mean, what we talk about here kind of goes to the report too. fact, I'd build all your PowerPoint slides and then kind of paste them into your report, so everything's identical. But if you're pasting things as images, that's tempting because then you don't have to deal with the, sometimes PowerPoint or Word will like skew your tables and charts and stuff. And that's really frustrating. But what's even more frustrating is when I have an intern that pasted everything as images, and I'm sitting in front of a bunch of people that want this report the next day. And there's 40 pages to the report, each one has a couple of charts in it. And the intern disappears, and it leaves me to retype all of the charts and recreate the graphs just to change simple formatting for the client. And I spend 3.5 hours at night meticulously typing word number by number into Excel to recreate those tables. That's annoying. Yeah. So to save you 30 seconds, cost me 4 or 5 hours.
It's very possible the client, say this client's Pocatello, they're like, I want Pocatello to be green on all slides. Like that happens. And you can, if you do it as a graph, you can just click green, instead of having to all of a sudden recreate all your graphs. So like stuff like that happens a lot. Did you have a comment, question?
Well, just a small thing, you can get rid of the outline around the outside of the graph too. Like if you're putting it into PowerPoint, you want to make it look like it's just a natural part of the slide, so you don't want to have an outline around it either.
Yeah, you could do that.
The other thing I would say too, like if you're gonna have for your names, if you're gonna go down, if it's 2 words, if you're gonna have one of them go down, you should have the next one go down, because Twin Falls or Idaho Falls are just too close. Like I would say that if it's gonna be more than 1 word, just to have, you know, symmetrical like that. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's still like tweaks to do. This is just.
I also don't like outlines. What are you trying to contain here? Like an animal that's trying to get out?
It's just a graph. It's vicious. Okay. So anyhow, a lot of these best practices that we're kind of try to go over. Your projects might do some different things. We have a couple projects this semester that they maybe don't want something, or they want something specific like a dashboard, or they want something like graphical. And then you can come and talk to us, and we can kind of like make exceptions based outside of this light thing. Like if you're doing a snapshot, it's probably not going to follow like our standard procedures. Then you can like talk to us. Okay.
So a really good tip too is make sure you get with your client like a few weeks before the final presentation and make sure you know everything they want. Because you might present something to them and they might say, hey, well, can we have this as well? And you're like, oh, I thought I had this wrapped up, and now I have to focus on doing this for a few more hours. So if you get with your client a few weeks before, then you should already know what's coming. There shouldn't be any hidden surprises or, you know, getting blindsided by something they want. So just keep that in mind.
All right, so pie charts. Generally avoid them. They're like useful in some instances. If there's like few bins, like 2 or 3 bins. This graph to the right is just horrendous and awful and completely valueless. Because like, which is bigger? Like blue or orange? I guess blue is bigger, but like how much bigger is blue? Is that blue or is that purple? That's purple, I guess. Like, it's just pointless. Don't do stuff like that. Gender, like maybe that's a better use for a pie chart. But to be honest, like if you're doing survey data, I think a table is a really good way to kind of display that. So that might not even be the best way. So just be very cautious with pie charts. So bar charts, we've already kind of talked about. You can do horizontal or vertical. You're always going to want to make sure that they are sorted. Or if they're not sorted, that they're logically placed. So here we have sorted from least percentage to highest percentage. And to the right, we have it sorted based off the range of dollars. So if you have a scale that's like least like to most like, you know, it's like a 5-point scale. You want it in that order from least to most like, you know, like agree, strongly disagree, disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree. You want to sort it like that. This example I kind of skipped, but this is actually sorted based off the police pay. So you're always going to want it to be sorted somehow or logically approached. Or if they didn't want to sort it, just wanted by cities, maybe they just, you know, do that. But you want to specify. Yeah. If it's sorted, if it's not. So hopefully that's pretty clear. Bar graphs are like usually the go-to. They're usually the clearest. Sometimes they're not though. So stacked bar chart. They look sometimes very difficult, and sometimes you have to explain them to your client, but they are often very valuable and are really good to show rankings. So if you have a survey question as a ranking, rank these things, then it's a great way to see both ranking and their prioritization as well as distribution. So we can see the frequency or the count that pay was even mentioned, or the count that feeling the work has purpose. But you can also see the rankings within that count to see that the number one picked first choice was feeling the work has purpose. But it wasn't necessarily picked the most overall. That was pay. That was picked, by the most individuals. So a stacked bar chart has some really good benefits to them. They're kind of complicated to make. It takes a couple tries. So this is a stacked bar chart. This is another stacked bar chart. This one's out of 100%. But the other one is just count-based. So this, you're able to see the distribution out of a whole. Does that make sense?
Those ones are really valuable when you're not really trying to show the frequency things were counted overall, but just kind of the distribution of responses across everything. You don't want some squished small bar to be overlooked when you're trying to compare the results in that category to the other categories of results. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Yeah, so like we just look here, yeah, a trade conference, that's green. You see that that's very important for, what's that, Mobilite, but not so important for other companies like Soul Solutions. So it's able to kind of, it's very useful to kind of which one you use for different purposes. So stacked bar chart, Excel makes them fairly easily. They're kind of complicated. Well, they're fairly easy to make, but sometimes it's tough to get your data in a format that will make it easily for you. Yeah.
Just another point. You want to make sure that things are the right size. So I can barely read the titles at the bottom, and so you have to just be aware where and how your presentation is going to be presented. So, for example, I can barely read which companies are which on the bottom.
Yeah, you'll generally for text, you're not going to want to go below a 20 font, and for graphs, like 12 or 14, like minimum. Like this is probably default, which I think defaults at like 10-point font, which I agree, too small. I didn't create the graphs. So tables are a really good way to display some data, because this data would be very difficult to display in a graph, or be just based on counts, and maybe just counts of companies that offer these different features. But with it being a table, you're not only able to just get counts, but you can also see which competitors offer those features. So you're kind of getting two things in one. So this might be a great way to display some data. Tables are a good way, like I said, to display some demographic data, to display some other types of matrixy type data, or just table data. Oops. Box and whisker plots. I love box and whisker plots so much. They're great. Let's go back to like 5th grade math class or 4th grade. I don't know when we did box and whisker plots. And elementary school when you did them. What's shown in a box and whisker plot? Yeah.
It's just the distribution of the different data points. So in this case, it's just the money it costs.
Yeah. So
It's a 5-number. It's a visualization of a 5-number summary.
Yeah, exactly. It's a 5-number summary. So we're able to see the min, the first quartile. So the 25% of data is within these two lines. 25% of data is between these two lines. This is the mean. Oh, sorry. This is the median. This is the mean. Not 25% of the data. 25% of the data. And we see some outliers as well. So this is great, especially for this. This is looking at the monthly membership price. We're able to see there's a strong cluster around like this 50 to, I think it was like $55 mark. and the mean was right in the middle of that, as well as able to see that there's some outliers. So if this is skewed to the right, we're able to see, the client was able to see that he might be able to charge more for this. Even though there is this cluster, there are people who do charge and are willing to pay much more for the service that he would be offering. So this is, very useful data, depending on what it is. This would be really not very useful in like a bar graph format, maybe. But I love box response. If you have the newest PowerPoint, it's native, it can do it. If you have the old PowerPoint, it will not do box response. Upgrade, school will do it for free. We'll pay for your new upgrade. Scatter plots, also great. You're able to see if there's correlation between two different things. You can put in a linear linear regression, put R squared, they're super easy. I've done this to prove that something is not correlated before in the project, to see if population and square footage of a building were correlated. And I included it purely so that they're not really correlated. So sometimes that's just as useful as saying something is correlated. Bubble charts, super annoying to make. Sometimes really cool though. So this is looking at, so a scatter plot will tell you two things. It's comparing this population and police budget. A bubble chart will do three things. So rarely do you need to compare three different things, but we are comparing here the property tax rate, the sales tax rate, and then the cities. So we can compare all the cities and their tax rate and property tax rate, sales tax rate and property tax. So this is kind of useful. Excel doesn't make it super easy. They don't label them. They actually manually label each one of them. So that's why they're kind of annoying to make. But in this instance, it's kind of it's valuable because you're able to see. This is also looking at population, isn't it? I guess it's like four.
So the population.
Also population based.
Bubble, and then you've got the other.
Yeah.
Well, it could be the size of the bubble. Probably pretty close.
I think it is.
Yeah.
No, it's not because Rexburg and I don't follow. I don't know what like I said, I didn't create these graphs. These are old, the past projects. So maybe applicable if you want to use it like.
Oh, land value per acre.
Oh, the land value per acre. Oh, I only got the text. Yeah. Bubbles represent land value per acre. Okay, so time series, we already kind of talked about this, just a time plot. It's a good way to look at some data as well. This is kind of an interesting thing that they're looking at. I'm not sure how useful it is, but if you're looking at time or growth over a period of time, probably better than a bar graph. Maps are really cool. You can use Google Fusion tables as well as there's some other services that will kind of create these graphs for you. Really cool because they're like workable and like you can give a live link to your client. We showed you in the beginning, if you guys remember back to the initial training, some stuff that Will created. I think this is using the exact same platform. This was for Paul Mitchell. They want to look at where their facilities were and then where the Rexburg Paul Mitchell is pulling from. Kind of see why they come here and don't go to like the facilities that are closer to them. So this was very useful for Paul Mitchell, and it's useful for a lot of clients if geography matters. Okay. So just some last few tips before we kind of wrap up. Are there any questions up to this point or comments or like disagreeing? Like, I disagree with you, David. You're ugly. No? So kind of what I always mentioned, don't use red. Generally speaking, it will be as negative. Don't be afraid to use more slides. Sometimes interns are like, I want to make this really small, like pack a lot onto these slides. It's okay to space it out. Most likely your presentations will be 20 to 40 slides. 20 to 30 is probably a little bit better. 40 is a little bit much. So space it out. Don't cram a bunch of text onto a single slide. Then this kind of look ugly. Text and tiles are large and legible, as well as like the axes, titles, and all those things. Bullet points, text overlapping, make sure they're not pictures. Just make sure we cover everything that we're supposed to, all the objectives. Make sure the formatting is consistent. Sometimes teams will make the presentation by each individual make a slide, or like just split up slides. just make sure that when all that comes together, it all looks the same. So like one doesn't have a gray background, one has like a white background, and just make sure the colors are the same. As well as, let's say you're looking at 5 competitors, and you look at lots of different features of these competitors, and you're going to label all the graphs. Keep the order of those 5 competitors the same, maybe color code them so that you know that, Ace Hardware is always green, and your Home Depot is always orange, so that it's consistent throughout the whole presentation. You're not like changing that. If that's applicable, if that helps with the data display, then do that.
Also, when you're doing surveys too, sometimes the surveys target different areas or different locations, so you'll need to compare them, like side by side or slide by slide. And I think a lot of people will make the mistake of, for like demographics, say you're doing a survey for male and females and you use the count, lots of people will look at a graph and think, oh, this area is better, but in reality, they had more responses than this other survey. So you have to be really careful how you present it too. So a lot of the times if you're comparing 2 different surveys with each other, you'll have to use percentages and not counts. So just be careful of the way that you present to the clients as well.
Yeah, and one last thing is that we use Google Drive here for all of our file storage. So if you take if you make a PowerPoint in Google presentation, what's it called? Google Sheets, Slides, thank you, Slides. Google Slides, and you download it as a PowerPoint, it'll automatically convert that to an image and mess all your formatting up. So what I would highly encourage is either to do it in online PowerPoint, which isn't great. It doesn't have all the features and all the functionality. So what I actually would encourage you to do is to do it on your computer and upload it, and then use the Google Drive as like a flash drive, and then just download it and re-upload it once you're done with it. Or figure out some other type of solution. Sometimes, so we had this group last semester that worked super hard on the presentation, did all of Google Slides. When they downloaded it, it was all images and it all looked awful because like things were overlapping, they just resized things. So, and they had to like redo all the graphs. So highly encourage you to not have that issue. If you do, if you want to use Google Sheets as a place to get ideas out and make a rough draft, then do that and use it as a collaborative thing, but then just realize that the real one is probably gonna have to be made fresh in PowerPoint. So it's just an issue with compatibility with Google, I'm sorry. Yeah.
One other thing is, so different people can have different versions of PowerPoint installed, and they don't always play nicely.
Yeah.
So one of the useful ways to ensure that your actual presentation goes smoothly is to export whatever the finished version is, export a PDF, and do your presentation from the PDF and not from the PowerPoint. You won't be able to go in and update things immediately, so it has that drawback, but it always will display exactly the same on every single computer.
Yeah. And that's something that we'll talk a little more in future weeks about like what you finally will be delivering to your client. But at the end of the project, you basically will send the client an email, and it'll be an email of the PowerPoint and then a PDF version of the PowerPoint, as well as the document and then a PDF version of the document. So the client wants to make edits, they can make edits, but they have the PDF version just because that's like the most standard base. Everybody can read the PDF, easily shared.
And you can avoid most of these problems by just working with your group and getting together. And it's a lot easier to have, like if you're all sitting together, you can all throw one person the data, one person's putting the presentation together. It's just a lot easier that way. That's what I've seen in my projects. So.
Cool. And one last note that I forgot to mention beforehand. So for next week, and we'll talk about it more next week's training because it's Tuesday and the scope and methodology side are due to Wednesday. But it's okay if you don't know the full methodology now. Like if you're doing a survey, you're not going to know how many contacts. So just put in the outline and just say like contacted XX, like so many respondents, XX, and then, filtered down to XX and then whatever it is, just so that it's a placeholder so we know that there will be numbers in there. It's just going to save you time in future weeks. And then hopefully if you start getting in survey data, start running simple analysis on it, and start creating graphs. And you're welcome to start assembling this now and not waiting until the end to do that. Yeah. Anything else?
So just two questions to make sure I understand. So given that we need to put everything in our Google Drive, we are doing the presentation in PowerPoint, right?
Yeah.
And are there any templates that you, because you were talking about templates, but, or are we using whatever?
So we have templates that have been created they're inside the engine resource folder. If you go to training, I should be sharing this with people. Reshare my screen. So if you go inside training, and then presentations, there's some examples. You can see past projects. Look at this one because it's fantastic. That's my project. I'm just, and then there are these PowerPoint templates that you can use. You can download those and use it. You can pick whatever colors you want. There's like color options. I'm working on creating new ones that are a little more updated, a little bit more modern feeling, aesthetically pleasing. And then we like you to use those. If you have some strong feeling to not use it and you don't want to use it, you can talk to one of us. And yes, but the new PowerPoint presentations will hopefully be a lot better looking. This is still like a 4:3, not in a widescreen format. So we're making a new one in the widescreen format that's going to be a little more versatile for every project's needs. So, but for now, you still can use that. There's nothing like super crucial on the scope and methodology slides pertaining to the actual slide format, I guess. It's more like content. Cool.
One other thing, John Ward's back here on the back. You want to talk a little bit about that team survey we're going to send out here in a little bit?
Yeah, so we've got a team survey that helps you look at how the team is doing as far as cooperation, as far as if you're trusting one another, as far as if you're helping build one another or not. And we'd like you to take that and just be very honest. Take it straightforward. There's a little key after you take it that we use that we'll get back to you with that will help you determine what areas you might need to kind of work on to help strengthen your team. But I think it'll be pretty valuable to you go through that process. So I don't want to say too much more about it before you take it, but we'll share quite a bit with you after you take it. It'll help you kind of dissect maybe some areas where your teams can be strengthened a little bit and work better together.
I think this is going to help a lot. John brought this to my attention the other day. John's got a great background with, you guys all met John before? Some of you have.
Yeah. I'll tell you real quick, 25 years in the Air Force, grew up down in Bear Lake, worked on some great programs in the Air Force, F-16 and F-22 program. Then I went to work for Emerson Electric for about 15 years and did new product development. So we did compressors and things like that for air conditioning and refrigeration systems. Did the Sensei Wi-Fi thermostat, which was an award winner, another part of Emerson. And then after I finished that, I did leadership development around Emerson and kind of mentored about 245 people as an executive mentor in 18 different countries. So I had a lot of experience working with a lot of different teams, and basically after I flew the first part of my Air Force career, it was all about working in teams and working together as teams, which is a lot of rich experiences in doing that. That's what you want to do in your life. Wherever you go to work, generally you're going to be part of a team. It's just, if you're going to be kind of siloed and working in functional areas specifically, or whether or not you want to get out and work on a team. That's where really a lot of creativity and value comes if you learn to rely on teammates and work together with it.
Yeah, so this survey that we'll send out is just a first thing we're trying out, team building and kind of understanding within your teams how things are functioning. And so I appreciate John spearheading that for us. And as you can tell, he's got a little bit of experience. So we're glad that we can figure it out.
You learn a lot from bad experiences.
Okay. Fantastic. Any last questions? No? Okay, then I think we are adjourned until next week. Thanks, guys.
When is this gonna be sent out?
Huh?
When is the survey gonna be sent out?
I don't know. Do you know when the survey's going to be sent out?
I'm pretty sure we gotta put some stuff down.